Hello everybody, and welcome to this video where I will document my thoughts on the upcoming Valor's End patch. This patch has some juicy balance, with an overall theme of adding quality of life changes to a handful of champions. First, let's discuss Kasumi's rework, the first champion rework since Sha Lin back in 2020. For her rework, Kasumi has been moved to the flank class. The base damage on her yokai doll is going up from 200 to 300. Keep in mind that curse stacks scale off this new number. Her lockout time after missing a shot has been lowered, going from 1 to half a second. But these buffs are accompanied by a range nerf, going from 120 units to 100, and a slower fire rate, going from one attack every 0.6 seconds to once every 0.675 seconds. The Savage Tear is up next with new functionality. Now, instead of disarming opponents at max stacks, it now heals Kasumi for 80 health per stack of curse the target has. That heal is boosted by 300 if the target has 5 curse stacks. The base damage has been lowered from 400 to 300 to match the yokai doll. Additionally, Savage Tear now applies 3 curse stacks to its victim, and the cooldown goes from 9 to 7 seconds. Body and Soul now makes Kasumi's soul invisible for its duration, and a nice quality of life change. Ending the skill early brings you to the soul, not back to the body. The spirit lures have been renamed to Spirit Traps, and can now be placed up to 50 units away and will explode in an AoE akin to the Spirit Bomb's talent. Now, instead of fearing opponents, they will be slowed by 20% for 1.5 seconds. To add counterplay, the traps now have 300 HP and can be destroyed. Lastly, the ultimate Bitter Betrayal now disarms enemies hit for 1.5 seconds. If you saw my Kasumi gameplay video from the PTS, then you already know that I think her rework was not a success. I'll cover each ability and discuss its failings. Starting with the most obvious. Body and Soul was barely changed. The cooldown and move speed bonus were not touched. A flank is defined by their mobility, and Body and Soul as it is, offers little in terms of flanking opportunities due to how slow it is and how long the cooldown is. This skill should be the first area looked at for improvement, if Kasumi is to be a proper flanker. Onto the yokai doll. The range nerf would be fine if Kasumi had a way to engage and disengage fights better, but she doesn't, so as it stands, this is a flank with 0 poke potential. Something that all other flanks have access to varying degrees. Besides the range nerf, I get what they were going for with the weapon attacking slower but hitting harder. I'm fine with that, it felt fine. What's not fine is that stupid lockout animation is still here. Sure, it's 50% faster now, but it's unnecessary and is a remnant of the team's desperate attempts to clobber this ghost so the player base would stop complaining about her. Another change stemming from rush balance decisions is that reveal. Yeah, Kasumi is still revealed to targets afflicted with curse stacks. This completely destroys any opportunity for flanking, because the opponent can see where you're coming from. If they want to fix yokai doll, I would start with undoing the reveal and lockout. See how that plays, and then adjust from there. Truth be told, not much to say about the Savage Tear. You're trading damage for sustain, but you have the option to engage fights with it now, due to it applying additional curse stacks to its victim. I'm sad to see the disarm go, but it was barely seen due to its prerequisites before. This is the one ability I don't take issue with. It's just hindered by Kasumi's more glaring issues. The Spirit Lures, oh boy. The fear is gone, which I totally understand. The random fears from the Spirit Bomb's talent are incredibly frustrating. But the new effect, 20% slow for 1.5 seconds. That is laughable. Enemies can walk on these and not even notice the slow with how weak and quick it is. I'd rather see the new Spirit Lures ditch the utility for raw damage, essentially making them deal flat damage but nothing else. As it stands, the Spirit Traps are easy to ignore and probably the worst ability in this rework. Bitter Betrayal will actually feel like an ultimate now. I really like this change, as it justifies the low damage from the ult. As I said earlier, I'm not a fan of this rework. Kasumi doesn't feel like a flank. Frankly, she doesn't feel reworked. She just feels slightly better than the garbage we have on live. Granted, that's a low bar. If you want to see how I would rework Kasumi into a flank, feel free to check out my rework concept. Before we continue with balance, I want to bring up the update to the HUD showing effects. Now, instead of clogging up your screen in random spots, all effects are now neatly tucked in next to your champion's health bar. A very nice quality of life change, and just in time due to Omen's recent release. Okay, back to balance. Atlas is starting the trend of quality of life changes, with the focus being his chronal cannon. The damage on the weapon is going down from 840 per shot to 780 per shot, but the first phase of the weapon, the rapid spray with the most spread and damage falloff, has been removed entirely. Now the weapon will have 3 phases of fire instead of 4. I've seen many confused about this change, but this is overall a net buff. As Atlas's weapon charges, the number of shots and spread is decreased. So now that one entire phase is skipped, it means Atlas's weapon is overall going to have more effective range, and he should be able to play a bit more comfortably at a distance. Don't sleep on Atlas, people. He got a massive health buff last patch and will be eating good with this weapon change. Next up is Caspian, and I gotta skip to the change for his movement skill first. Finally, after so long, Deadly Momentum now carries your momentum. The twist is optional. If you don't opt for it, you keep 75% of your momentum. Caspian was the first champ I tried on the PTS, and I had a blast playing him. This change alone makes him finally feel like a flanker. You're able to play so creatively due to his new movement. Caspian is unchained and ready to pounce. To further his hunt comes some more buffs. The ammo consumption on Love, the gun, has been lowered from 3 to 1. Now you can fire 21 shots instead of just 7. The attack speed bonuses on Sharp and Piercing Momentum have been increased from 2% to 3.5% per stack. At max stacks, the weapons will fire 17.5% faster instead of just 10%. But that's not all. The Measured Cadence talent is getting massively buffed. The ammo count to trigger the Rogue's Tempo is being lowered from 6 to 2. Now you can trigger this on 2 sword slashes as well as 2 gunshots. Additionally, the projectile now slows enemies by 15% for 0.5 seconds. Keep in mind that this stacks with the slow provided by Love. Okay, so as much as I love Caspian and wanted to see him buffed, I think these changes are overkill. The change to Deadly Momentum by itself is enough. The attack speed bonus can feel very oppressive to fight, especially when combined with the buffed Measured Cadence. Keep in mind that Caspian's high burst damage was balanced out by the fact that he essentially had no movement skill. Now he has mobility and burst damage to boot. If I were to pick and choose, I would not be buffing the ammo cost on Love or buffing Measured Cadence. I do like the attack speed bonus, but I think that should be reduced or not changed at all. Just don't take my momentum away. I will cry if that doesn't make it to live. Furia is next with a bunch of rebalancing. Let's start with the base kit. Kindle Soul range is being upped from 125 units to 200 units. The base heal is being lowered from 850 to 800, and the heal over time is going down from 340 over 2 seconds to 300 over 2 seconds. Now the base heal will restore 1100 HP over 2 seconds instead of 1190. Keep in mind, this is before the keywords and before the new effect of Kindle Soul. The old Cherish is going to base kit. Now Kindle Soul will heal allies for up to 15% more based on their missing HP. The buff to the healing range is nice. Besides that, I don't like all the complications Furia has gotten since the keywords nonsense. I miss the days of Kindle Soul healing a flat 1000 up front, and then 400 over 2 seconds. No kooky keywords to confuse yourself with. That's not it for Furia though. She has not 1, but 2 talent reworks. I'll start with the one I like first. Exterminate is finally being booted. The old talent would automatically stop the Pyre Strike on an enemy hit. The Pyre Strike's base damage was increased, and it gained damage the longer an opponent was in the beam. Easily one of the most frustrating talents to face in this game. The new Exterminate increases Wrath's attack speed bonus from 10% per tier to 15% per tier. When your Wrath passive is full, you will attack 45% faster instead of just 30%. I'm quite a fan of the new talent. The attack speed buff is quite notable, and the fact that Furia needs to heal to maintain Wrath will ensure this talent isn't solely a selfish DPS playstyle. Additionally, I could see this talent bringing some previously underused cards into the spotlight. Next up is Cherish. Since the effect is going to base kit, the new talent is as follows. Kindle Soul now heals allies within 20 units of the original target for 50% effectiveness. I am not in favor of this change. One of Furia's key weaknesses is that she is a solo target healer. This is offset by her incredible damage potential and great ultimate. Previously, if you wanted access to AoE healing, you would have to invest into learning Solar Blessing. Now there is no reason to run that talent, when you could easily get AoE healing by right-clicking every 3 seconds. Not to mention, how much easier your full Wrath meter will be to maintain with this talent. I would have rather seen Celerity return instead of this new Cherish. For those who don't remember, that was Furia's 4th talent when she released. It gave her 2 charges of Wings of Wrath, a very simple, but very effective talent. Outside of the Exterminate rework, I'm not a big fan of these changes. Next is Grover, with more nerfs stemming from talent keywords. Rampant Blooming's base heal is going down from 425 to 250. The heal over time has also been gutted, going from 275 to 150. Are all these chip nerfs worth it just to keep the dumb keywords? I think it'd be simpler to revert all the keyworded supports back to their keywordless versions, and leave it at that instead of dealing with this wonky balance. Seriously, every patch one of these supports is in there. Inara has been top of the meta and is next on the chopping block. Earthenguard's DR is being lowered from 35 to 30%. The duration is also going down from 5.3 to 4.5 seconds. The Mother's Grace talent is losing the 20% bonus healing effect. This on top of the bonus DR going down from 15% to 10%. I understand these changes, but they feel heavy-handed. Right now the main issue with Inara comes from Mother's Grace. Inara can receive 50% bonus healing with a talented Earthenguard. That comboed with the 50% DR can make her impossible to take down, especially if she's being pocketed by a keyworded support. So the nerf to the bonus healing? Completely warranted. But I personally feel that Mother's Grace should give you 50% DR. There is a ton of damage in this game, and a Mother's Grace Inara has always been a staple at countering that. It's not like Inara can properly retaliate anyway. Stone Spear has very low DPS. In previous patches of the game, Inara's Earthenguard lasted for 5 seconds. It gave 30% DR. Earthenguard bumped that up by 20% for 50% damage reduction. I'd like to see that version of Inara back. She was tough, but fair. Next up is Io, continuing with an amazing quality of life buff. Lifelink, the talent that makes Luna heal all allies around her for 300 healing per second, is going to the base kit. Finally! Ever since Luna lost the ability to cap objectives, the skill has felt very lacking. If you didn't run the old lifelink, not only was Luna barely noticeable, but Io also faced immense difficulties in keeping a team healthy. Now that lifelink is base, Io is capable of group healing and has great self-sustain in her base kit. Keep in mind that Luna's healing affects Io herself. If you ran self-heals on Moonlight, you might be inclined to change your build. Alternatively, you could double down on heals if you wish to keep the card. Or, you could triple down on heals with Io's new lifelink talent. The new lifelink is as follows. When Io or Luna heals an ally other than each other, they also heal the other at 50% effectiveness. To simplify, if Io heals an ally with Moonlight, Luna will heal for 500 health per second. If Luna heals an ally with her AoE, Io will heal for 150 health per second. The healing Luna provides to Io stacks, depending on how many allies are being healed by her. On top of that, this heal is separate from the base 300 healing that Luna provides. So, if you and your team are huddled by Luna, Io will be healing for 750 health per second. This new talent will be the go-to for self-sustaining Ios. I also think it's the talent that requires the least effort, so it's a good pick if you don't feel like thinking too much. With lifelink going to base kit, I foresee Goddess's Blessing being the go-to pick for Io players. I'm very interested to see how she performs, now that she essentially has 2 talents. Next is Maldamba with a card buff. Ritual Magic, the card that heals you when you use Mending Spirits, is being buffed. Now the card scales by 20 instead of 15. Capped out, you will heal for 100 health per second instead of just 75. The heal is still incredibly low for a 5-pointer, and there's no reason to run this card if you can manage your cords well. Nyx is following in Inara's footsteps with a slew of nerfs. Base health is going down from 4850 to 4700 to match Inara. Rift Slash cooldown is going up from 9 to 11 seconds, the slow is being lowered from 35% to 25%, and the slow duration is being lowered from 1 to 0.5 seconds. Lastly, the cooldown on Royal Presence is being increased by 3 seconds, going from 11 to 14 seconds. Again, like Inara, I understand that Nyx is strong, but these changes feel like overkill. Base HP, fine. The Rift Slash slow duration matching its damage ticks, fine. The cooldown increase, I think 10 seconds would have been a better middle ground. As for the slow strength, yes, the intense slow from Rift Slash can be frustrating. I think lowering the slow to 30% would feel more fair. The main problem with the slow comes from its bolstered strength via the unchecked power card. I would have rather seen that card be nerfed rather than the base ability. What I don't like seeing nerfed so heavily is Royal Presence. Like Inara's Earthen Guard, this cooldown is vital for Nyx to stay alive. Lowering its uptime is a massive blow to Nyx's survivability. Doubly so with Nyx's other nerfs. I personally would not touch this cooldown if Nyx's other nerfs are to go through. Someone must have seen my Octavia rework video, because Octavia is up next with an amazing quality of life change. The Marksman Rifle can now be fired in full auto. No longer do you have to...
Whoa! I'm dying.
To compensate, the damage on the scope fire has been lowered from 435 to 415 a shot. A small loss for such an amazing quality of life change. I can't believe that I'm excited to play Octavia next patch. Coward Ceres players will be frothing at the mouth with her buffs. Restore Soul's range has been upped from 125 to 200 units to match Furia's Kindle Soul. And the Mortal Reach talent has been reworked. The old talent bumped up the range on Restore Soul, as well as made the ability heal for 300 more health per use. The new effect is as follows. Increase the duration of shadow travel by 1 second, and Restore Soul can now be used while in shadow travel. For as much as I trash talk them, I'm glad the Veil 5 players now have a talent to reflect their fearful playstyle. Being able to use Restore Soul while shadow travel is active does address the community issue of Ceres not doing anything when she's escaping. My only problem with this new talent is being able to chain together shadow travels, thanks in part to these cards here. I'm sure you've seen the Reddit clips of Ceres only having a 1 second downtime between travels. If that's addressed, then I have no issue with this talent. I don't think it's particularly great, as Ceres' real power lies in Soul Collector, but you do you, Veil players. Next is Sati, first debuff to Ricochet. In case you don't know, hitting the coin with your ultimate will cause the coin to explode by draining its health. Now the coin exploding from the ultimate can be triggered multiple times. A fun quality of life change that should make for some more thoughtful ultimates. Sati has a slight rework to the Heads or Tails talent. For those who don't know because it's never picked, this talent makes the coin deal bonus damage to shields, on top of revealing enemies hit for 1 second, and healing Sati for 125 every time she hits somebody with Ricochet. Well, forget those last two, because the heal and reveal have been booted. Now the talent will allow Ricochet to hit 2 targets. I wish I could speak positively about this new talent, because on paper it sounds very fun. When I played on PTS though, facing this talent was frustrating. Not due to the talent itself, but due to this card here. Because you're hitting 2 targets with Ricochet, Sati can get her ult insanely quick. All we need is an adjustment to this card, and then I think the talent is fine. It wouldn't be a year of Paladins without Skye getting used and abused. She's up next with 3 nerfs. Base HP is getting reverted, going from 2100 to 2000. The new passive Shadow Walker is seeing a reduction in its move speed bonus, with it going from 30 to 20%. And the Poison Bolt's damage has been lowered, from 10% to 8% of the target's max HP. Skye's recent buffs have finally pushed her towards a playable state. Because of that, I know a lot of the community has been complaining. I personally don't understand the complaints, since Skye for me is easy to counter due to the numerous ways to see her during stealth. These changes kind of feel like a stand-in for people not wanting to buy Illuminate. I suppose if there is credit to give, I think the passive speed boost nerf is fair. Health nerf? I guess. Skye's had 2000 HP for so long, I never really got used to 2100. But the damage on Poison Bolts? It's always been 10% per bolt, ever since I started playing this game back in 2017. Without Debilitate, Skye's Poison Bolts deal their damage very slowly. I'd probably be more upset about these changes if I played Skye more. I still haven't touched her much since Smoke and Dagger was gutted. Next up is Torvald with 2 protection card nerfs. Time Shaper, the card that grants ammo to your bubble target, is getting its scaling lowered from 2 ammo to 1 ammo. The level 1 version of the card still grants 2 ammo. Capped out, you will grant your target 6 ammo instead of 10, which is a pretty hefty nerf depending on who's receiving it. I really think this card should be a percent-based value instead of a flat number, because 6 ammo is a vastly different number between champions. The other card nerf is to Wind Dancer. The move speed bonus still starts at 10%, but now the card scales by 5%, down from 10%. Capped out, the move speed buff will be 30% instead of 50%. I'm probably very biased, because I love playing with this card, but I don't like this nerf. The 2-second uptime of the speed boost can make it tricky to take advantage of. Not to mention that previously, this was the highest percent of speed you could give to a fellow champion. If they want to nerf the speed, I would like to see a slight increase on its duration. Maybe 2.5 or 3 seconds. These card changes just feel weird. Is Pocket Torvald still oppressive to fight? Maybe I'm not seeing it. Next is 7 with a lot of weapon changes. Burst Mode's ammo cost is going from 1 to 2. Now it takes 6 ammo every time you fire. The damage per bullet has been lowered from 150 to 125. And the effective range has been lowered, going from 110 units to 80 units. Autofire has had a damage increase, going from 200 to 250 per shot. But its effective range was slashed quite heavily, going from 95 to 50 units. And the Mag Dump's effective range is getting doubled, going from 10 to 20 units. Overall, these changes intend to make 7 players use each form of fire depending on their range. Currently, all 7 players use Burst Mode, since the DPS is on par with Autofire, but you use way less ammo and have much better range. While I don't see 7 players using Mag Dump since it's still pretty clunky without the right build, I can definitely see the players swapping between Burst and Autofire modes more often. To make this easier, Trigger Discipline is getting a cooldown decrease, going from 0.65 to 0.35 seconds. Now the act of swapping fire modes is going to be much snappier. This comboed with the weapon changes should hopefully have the effect of making 7 feel like a champ ready for everything, swapping fire modes on the fly to accompany any situation. To further buff 7's weapon, comes buffs for the Tribunal Upgrades talent. The Burst Mode shock reveal has been increased from 2.25 seconds to 2.5 seconds. However, the AoE explosion has been booted. The slow from the Autofire freeze bullets have been increased from 2% to 3% stacking. And the Mag Dump's burn damage has been upped, from 25 to 35 damage per tick. Overall, some nice increases to make each mode feel more useful. I still don't see this talent being picked much, due to the cooldown reduction provided by the spring-loaded talent. To bring down his frustration factor, 7 has had 2 card nerfs. The Knight, which reduces the cooldown of explosive dodge after using Hook, has had its scaling cut in half, going from 0.5 seconds to 0.25 seconds, which is very chunky, but I guess they're trying to make 7's focus be more on his weapon and less on his mobility. And Terror, which increases the pull strength on grapple. This card has seen its scaling lowered, going from 5% to 4%. Again, another change to rein in 7's mobility, and make it easier to keep up with him. 7 can be very frustrating to face, so I do support these changes, and I respect the fact that they're trying to enforce some playstyle variety with the champ. Next is Vivian. Haven't seen her in the patch notes in a while. Deflector Shield is no longer cancelled if Vivian is stunned. Fair change, I suppose. If you're getting stunned as Vivian with the shield up, chances are you're gonna die anyways. It'll be interesting to see if the shield staying active changes that. The talent Suspect Everyone, which grants bonus health to the shield, as well as reduces its cooldown when it's destroyed, has had the bonus shield health go up from 350 to 500. A boring buff for a boring talent. What's not boring are the changes for Ying. Let's start with the ultimate Illusory Rift. Half of its healing is now true healing that ignores Cauterize. So at any point in the match, you are guaranteed to get at least 300 healing per second from the ultimate. Well, technically 330 healing because of the cauted version, but you get it. While impactful early game, Ying's ultimate loses a ton of power late game due to Cauterize. 330 healing per second doesn't sound like much, but that will be very impactful late game when anti-healing is flying around. To further bolster her numbers are the massive buffs for the illusions. Never thought I'd be saying that on this channel. The illusions will now heal for 500 per burst, instead of 420 per burst. Each illusion's health has been bumped up from 1000 to 1500, and the max number of illusions you could have on the field has been upped from 2 to 3. That last change sounds like the most impactful, but keep in mind, if you don't run Chronos or increase lifetime on illusions, you will never see 3 of them on the field, due to the cooldown and base uptime. One aspect of these changes I don't see many people talking about is the potential increased self-sustain Ying will have. On top of healing more, the illusions have 500 more HP, which might make for some interesting body blocking techniques. This change is great for Yings of all talent choices. More heal botting for life exchange, more healing for focusing lens, and more bombs for the RYC. Just a warning, watch out for those resonance players. They will be a menace next patch. Originally, Eevee was going to have an HP increase, and Amani's Mana Rift was going to have an AoE decrease, but thankfully the devs responded to negative feedback and decided to rescind those changes. Damn. I had a funny joke planned about how it's really hard to tell when Amani is receiving benefits from her mana rift. And that's where I'm going to leave this review. I know I skipped skins and LTMs this patch, but both of them are and I'm a bit pressed for time this month. So what do you guys think about this update? Let me know down below. I would also like to remind you that I'm streaming some Nancy Drew this Halloween, so if you're not going out, why not join me as we judge Nancy and crew? Anyways, as always, I'm YellowNinja, and peace.